Lou Shapiro is a criminal law expert joining us from Los Angeles, and I thank you for your time, Lou. You're a defense attorney. What do you think of this effort by the president to claim presidential immunity against prosecution? And I ask this kind of in the same vein of when I watched that interview that David Frost did with Richard Nixon ages ago. Richard Nixon basically said the president can do anything as long as he's president.
Well, and that's essentially the heart of their argument. See, the idea is Trump is saying, when I was president and I was challenging the election results, I was doing this in the capacity of a president, making sure that the next person taking over is the rightful winner of the federal election, that I was performing my duties as protector of the country to make sure that everything was going the way it should go according to the law. And just like in the Nixon matter, the Supreme Court held that Nixon was immune from any civil liability. Trump's lawyers are making the similar arguments. So too in the criminal law capacity, Trump is also immune. Nixon is immune. I'm immune. I was president then. I was doing the right thing at that time. I can't be held accountable.
Lou, would the former president have a stronger case if on January 6th he tried to do something to stop the insurrection itself, when the calls were coming in, even from his vice president saying, do something about this? If the former president had been taking action, calling out the National Guard, trying to contact members of Congress, exercising his authority as president to stop this insurrection, would he have a stronger case?
So any evidence of him trying to stop the insurrection from taking place would obviously vote in his favor. What he is trying to say is, even though I may not have said so much on that point, he did say that everyone should go home peacefully at that point, but you could argue the damage had been done by then. What he's saying is that he's basing it on free speech, that whatever he said that day was in the confines of free speech. Show your strength is not the same thing as saying go storm the Capitol. And furthermore, he's going to argue that I wasn't even charged with insurrectionism. Other people were charged. The ones that were there that day, the federal government chose to prosecute them as insurrectionists. I was not charged for that. So how could the Colorado State Supreme Court perform their own factual finding analysis without conducting a trial, violate my due process, and claim I'm an insurrectionist when no one else has established that under sworn testimony and evidence? That's going to be his strongest argument to the Supreme Court.
Now, some may strain credulity with this one, but his attorneys are arguing that the actions he took were all part of his efforts to defend election integrity, as they see it. What do you make of that argument?
You know, that's a personal decision, right? Some people will say that it's a farce. There was no evidence, as we see looking back, on any kind of significant fraud that should have changed the outcome of the election. Other people will say, no, we never got the full story. There's a whole documentary on Netflix you can watch about this. And that's one of those situations that just remains unsettled. It's amazing. You'll speak to two very logical, educationally minded people and get two very different results on how they think that election ended off. So if I had the answer to this, I think we'd have a lot more peace and stability in this country.
Lou, this law dates back to the Civil War, trying to keep people who did lead an insurrection at what was the bloodiest conflict on American soil from ever holding office again. Jefferson Davis was never tried, as was the case with Robert E. Lee. Both of them were never tried, were never convicted, and yet this is what this law was about. So why does the former president think he has a case?
Because he's trying to make a distinction between history back then, which dealt with the Confederate Union, right? These were people who formed their own government at the time against the U.S. government, say, we're going to, do things our way. And they actually did try to overthrow a sitting U.S. government. So when you compare that to Trump's saying, that's very different. I didn't form a union. I wasn't trying to overthrow any government. I was just trying to make sure the righteous government I was in place at that time either should be continuing or ceasing, depending on what the results are.
Mr. Shapiro, you're a defense attorney. Most defense attorneys tell their clients to exercise probity and remain quiet. The former president doesn't do that. What would be your advice to the former president?
Yeah, my advice would be that he has hired very talented attorneys. I've read the briefs that they filed over the weekend and prior to it. They have strong legal arguments. They're going to go with guns blazing when it comes time for oral arguments. Their written briefs are really on point. And I think you should let people do their job. You hire people, trust them to do what they're supposed to do. Don't muddy the waters by airing out comments or opinions or putting other people down. It just does not, I think, lead to any productive outcomes for anybody in the end. That would be my advice.
Thank you,
Criminal
Lou
defense
Shapiro.
attorney.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you very much.